how can you use the align system to create alignment between what you're thinking and believing, what you're wanting and feeling, and what your actions are doing? When those three things line up, you are unstoppable. Nobody can touch you. And it's not because you are pushing people aside and shoving them down to get what you want, but you just have this clarity on who you are. You show up in the world as that person. You align with those actions. It's magnetic.
Hi, Katie. Welcome to the show. So excited to have you. I watched your video, Who is Katie Richardson? And you had this really neat product. It was for
Mm-hmm.
babies that you
Mm-hmm.
got into a bunch of different stores and you got a bunch of different press. And I bet our viewers would love to know how you did that. Like, what did you do? What was your mindset? Where did you get the confidence to just be like, I'm gonna go on Ellen.
Mm.
I'm gonna go on live with Kelly. Like that's pretty awesome.
Mm. I mean, it's kind of a long story, but I'm the unlikely candidate to end up in all of those media places and get a lot of attention. Growing up, I was a middle child. I really didn't see myself as important, and in fact, I felt very invisible. And I kind of thought that was my place in life. But when I was in college, I was searching for a major profession that really lit me up. I wasn't excited about the things that my older siblings had been doing. And I through a series of events, I ended up in industrial design. And I really thrived in that arena. And it was the first time in my life I saw myself as like, I don't know, being a professional in any sort of arena. And, from there, I found an incredible man. We ended up getting married. And as young parents, over a Christmas break, we said, let's invent a product that allows him to quit his job and we can build something together. And so I think the
Oh
fact that
wow.
I was doing something that lit me up with the man I was madly in love with, and kind of, we were just nobodies. And using our design thinking skills, we designed a brand and products that really attracted a lot of attention. We innovated in a space that really hadn't been innovated in a lot of years. And it caught a lot of attention. It's funny because in a lot of ways, I didn't have the courage or the audacity to go after big media attention, but because of what we had created and the reason uh, it was accomplishing what it was setting out to do. And because that was so different, it attracted a lot of media attention. So the media that you've seen me in, the Ellen Show, the Rachel Ray Show, the Today Show, on the cover of Entrepreneur Magazine, they all came to us.
So I want to
Oh
unpack
my
that.
gosh. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So I want to unpack this just a little bit, though. So
Yeah.
you said you didn't have the courage to go after them, and they just came to you, which I totally appreciate that. But you still had the different way of looking at the world, right? Like you
Mm-hmm.
were saying, "Hey, I have this problem. This would help solve it for my child, for my children, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to invent this product, and then
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna bring a whole brand around that, and just keep coming out with products and innovations to make the lives of young parents easier." I'm assuming that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of what your goal was. But like lots of young parents are faced with the same problems and they're not
Sure.
doing those things. So what do you think
Right.
differentiated you and your man from that? Like so you could just go out and like, we're gonna go do this right now.
I mean, the real answer is I was guided. I'm a very spiritual woman. I believe in God. And there were many times on my own journey where I did run into my own insecurities and false and limiting beliefs about myself. But I was always seeking God's will for me. And that's how I would get past those difficult moments is I would go to my knees. I would open up the scriptures and I would just say, what do you have for me? What is your will for me? And it was a chance for me to look at what do I want and what does God want for me? And in a lot of ways, I was playing a different game than what it looks like I was playing. I was building a life. Yes, there was a brand and physical products, but I love adventure. I love feeling a deep connection to God. I I love working alongside my husband. I really respect and admire my four children. And so the business ultimately was a vehicle for me to become who God had created me to be.
So I
Wow,
love that.
that is profound. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, okay, so you guys create this product, the product is doing well. Are you still selling that? Because the other thing that I really want to talk to you about, you had so many glowing testimonials about how
Hmm,
you help, business
I
owner.
do.
I'm
Hmm.
assuming mostly business owners
Hmm.
build their business and build their confidence. Um,
Hmm.
and you mentioned retiring your husband. So are you guys both all in on the advisory and the product development now?
About 8 years ago, we actually exited that company, the physical products company. And I felt called to serve in a new direction, and that is to be an executive business coach. So I've been coaching people for 8 years now. And if I'm honest, again, like I was confronted by all of my insecurities. I made the decision, we signed the contract, and I'm like, okay, I'm all in on this new thing. And I was just immediately met with all kinds of internal resistance. Who do you think you are? Who are you to tell somebody else what to do in their business? And I honestly had many days, weeks, months. I would say it was a good 18 months where I was struggling to get out of bed in the morning. I felt like a fraud. And I just would have these moments in the shower where I'm crying, thinking, what am I doing with my life? Did I just make a big
Oh,
mistake? And what's so beautiful is you and I are talking right now. I had a session with a client just before we spoke, and he was in tears saying, I had no idea just how much you could actually help me just 3 months ago. And the transformation that he's experiencing in his life is just, it was inconceivable to the version of him 3 months ago. And he said, and yet, like, you could see it all. And he just was in this immense gratitude. And I feel really grateful to be able to do what I do. And I help a whole range of individuals. My clients are hard money lenders, they're in real estate, they're a world class plastic surgeon, course creators, just a whole range of individuals, solar companies. And it's incredible founders and entrepreneurs who have a bigger purpose and mission and want to understand how to use their business as a vehicle to accomplish that purpose.
Katie, you said something really interesting there, and I'm wondering if you're finding when you go to help these business owners, if they're struggling with the same thing. But it sounds like you struggled with a lot of imposter syndrome. Are you
Oh,
finding that
totally.
that's the biggest issue that these entrepreneurs have, or is it something else? Like, where are you finding the bottlenecks for entrepreneurs these days?
The way that I describe it is, I had this experience myself. I worked really hard to build a company. And in the beginning, you're a nobody. Nobody wants to take your phone calls. They don't give you attention. And you feel it's almost embarrassing how small your company is. And then one day it takes off. And for me, when that happened, it really took off. And it was like this rocket ship ride. And all of a sudden, that moment that I'd been dreaming of was finally my reality. But what I didn't know previously, and what I was experiencing in that moment, was it was overwhelming. And all of a sudden, I was confronted with, what kind of mother am I when my business is requiring this much time and attention of me? And it was creating tension in my marriage. And it was it was all consuming. It was a global business. I had distribution in 26 different countries. And that meant like the clock,
Wow.
there was no clocking out. And,
Yeah.
you know, so in that moment, I was struggling, and it felt like that dream that I always had of having a successful business was now becoming a monster in my life, and it was going to ruin and destroy my life. And I couldn't live with the regret of that ever happening. And so as I'm in this like inflection point in my life, and I'm asking, honestly, it was a moment in the kitchen. We'd finished dinner, the kids were asleep, I was sweeping up, and I was just in a battle inside my head and my heart. And I'm talking to God, and I'm just like, I trusted you. I've built this company like you had encouraged me to do. And now I feel like it's not sustainable for me. And I
Yeah.
don't understand how to do this. And I was getting books from the library. I was reading business magazines, and I was trying to find somebody who proves that my life wasn't going to just completely fall apart, because that terrified me. It felt like that's what was starting to happen. And I couldn't live with that regret. And so as I'm in conversation with him, and honestly, like really arguing and saying, hey, I gave it my best shot, but I don't know that I have what it takes to make this work. That's when he helped me see something radically different, which was, Katie, you thought that this was about the business model or you becoming famous or creating a really significant brand. And those things are great and awesome. But this is about something bigger. And while you might not see the woman who's capable of navigating all of these things, you don't need that. You can go create her because you know design. And so instead of trying to find the perfect business model, I realized that the key to success in business and life was within me and that I was the
Mhm.
model and I had to create myself. And that's when I really started doing things differently. And especially at the time, I started my company in 2008. It was, there was this immense glorification of hustle and grind and I'll sleep when I'm dead mentality. And that's in a way how I had started the business, but it just was not sustainable. And so the people who work with me are caught in what I would consider to be an old operating system. And it's so confusing because that old operating system helped you create success. And yet,
I know exactly what you're talking about because
and
I
yet, if
started
you,
a law firm that and around
okay,
the same time you did, and it was like I found myself in the same situation, like in my
yeah,
office crying with my kids in the conference room watching YouTube videos because
yeah,
that was how I kept them close to me, was just having them in my office. And I just remember thinking like, I don't want to hustle anymore, but I feel like if I don't hustle, this is all gonna like, what have I done? What have I
yeah,
done? I
yes.
totally understand everything that you're saying. And then to
Mm.
stop hustling is probably the easiest
It's not.
slash hardest part.
No, and it's not the answer. Like you
No.
can't just stop hustling and cut back your hours and your work. What needs to happen is we need to operate in a new way. And I have a whole vital system that I teach my clients that shows them how to operate in this new really powerful way where you begin to collapse time, you're hyper productive in a
Mm.
non-logical way, and you're able to accomplish and achieve so much more in a way smaller amount of time. And what's so, they can't comprehend it in the beginning, but a huge part of the outcome is they have more time. They have more energy. They have more space in their life to be present with their friends and family and loved ones. And it doesn't make logical sense. And God taught me this, how to do this over time using my business as kind of the guinea pig to learn this framework. And so this is what I do with my clients today. And I teach them that vital framework. And as they learn this framework and they internalize it, their operating system shifts as an outcome. And it just becomes uh, so much more easy and effortless. And dare I say the F word, fun?
Yeah, that's I mean that's what everyone wants, right? Like at some level, the reason we all have worked hard and done the things that we've done is because we wanted to create the freedom to design our life how we want.
Yes.
But it gets in the way. Like you work hard to try to create that freedom and then you have all these patterns that don't really work when you
Yeah.
have the freedom to actually make those choices.
Yeah. And they are patterns, just like you said, they're really habitual and they're really ingrained in us. Rewriting those patterns is possible. It is excruciatingly difficult. And what's fascinating is the people that I work with are really hard workers. They're ultra disciplined. And yet, this is a different kind of hard work and it's extremely rewarding.
Yeah. Well, I
No,
mean, I
I
go ahead,
go
Jillian.
ahead, Jeff.
Okay. All right, I will then. So anyway, so Jillian and I have both spent most of the last couple of years working a lot on mindset stuff and really like diving into that, and that's really why the show exists. So if
Mm.
you're just an average audience member and maybe what you're saying is resonating with them, that they're working too much, that they're not breaking the patterns that got them to where they are so that they can craft that life. Like what's the number one thing they should be focusing on? Like what do they need to start thinking about?
This is going to sound, I don't know, ethereal to you, or maybe not. the thing that we're focused on is usually the wrong thing. And what we need to focus on is who we are being. And answering this question, who am I? That sounds like super philosophical, but I mean it literally and even logically. If you really understand who you are and you really know that, you start to make new decisions and you show up to the world in a totally different way. For the first half of my life, I was very beautifully taught and trained to do what I was supposed to do. My father, an incredible man, he was raised in the military academy. He ran his home in a very militant style. And I was this dutiful soldier who did what I was supposed to do. And what God was teaching me as I was building my business is, like, that's great and fine for a season of your life. And we learn a lot of incredible things when we live within that structure. But what I needed to start to understand was, what do I want? Right. And, even as a married woman, as an entrepreneur, there were moments early on where I was looking around saying, what am I supposed to do? Who's going to tell me what I'm supposed to do right now? And what I needed to start to learn was, well, who are you? And what do you want? And then can I make God my partner in that and co-create life alongside him, and not just continually militantly go do what I think I'm supposed to do, right? That's somebody else's life, and that's somebody else's version of who they think I need to be. And if you can really start to listen to your inner voice, and mine was really silent in the beginning. I couldn't hear that inner voice very well. I hadn't developed trust in a relationship with me. And instead, I looked to people outside of me to tell me what to do. And so shifting off of that model and really shifting into, what do I want? What am I supposed, not what am I supposed to do, but what do I want and who do I want to be? I mean, that is the core of the work that I do. And, asking that question, what do you want? If you can define that, then all of a sudden you have this point on the horizon. I was doing a podcast interview with an incredible individual. She started her career as a safari tour guide. And she told me that in the safari, it's really flat. And if you walk and guide people through the safari, before you know it, you'll be walking in circles because everything looks the same. And she said, the only way out of that is you have to have a point on the horizon.
Okay.
Too often we're walking in circles in our life, and we're not actually intentionally headed to where we want to go.
Yeah,
Wow.
so that's like looking for a guiding star, some kind of waypoint
Yes.
where you know where you're going. And I love safari, so we could go on a whole side note there. Like Jillian and I went to Tanzania a couple of years ago to look at some property there, and we had an amazing time. It was really fantastic.
That's super cool.
But I you said that you thought that your answer might seem a little too spiritual. Maybe I don't think that's the exact word you used.
Ethereal.
But, yeah,
it's not.
Right.
It doesn't feel tangible or tactical.
Yeah, but honestly, like I said, we've both been separately working on ourselves for a long time, and I have a life coach who we've interviewed on this show, Jamil Sayed, and that's been the basis of our work the whole time, and it's changed my life completely. It's like every time, it's like, who do you want to be, and how are you showing up today? And are you showing up as the person that you want to be? Because that's really what decides the outcome of what you get in life. I think we're very powerful creators of our own existence. And I think that we get that from just being the person that can do the things that we want to do.
I love it. I fully agree.
Katie, if you don't mind, you mentioned you have a framework called the Vital Framework, and that you can get just as much done in a much shorter period of time as if you were hustling. Can you give our listeners perhaps like a sneak peek on what that framework looks like? I'm not like, I don't want you to give away all your secrets, but I also know.
No, I'll give them away. I'm happy to give them away. I want people to know this. I want them to understand it. I want them to start implementing. So VITAL is an acronym, and V stands for vision. And I just shared with you what that means. There's a vision system that I have that helps people understand what they're moving towards. Too
Mm.
often we're running away from something, and that's, that can get you into motion and get you moving. But if you really want to live an intentional life, you have to have that point on the horizon that you've clearly defined and identified that you're actively moving towards. The I is for the inspired path.
Okay.
There are 1,000 ways you could get to that point on the horizon, but the question is, what do you value, and what is that inspired path for you? And how can you not just make the destination the goal, but also the journey? And this experience that I had inside of my physical products company. When I was facing those moments and struggling with, what kind of mother am I being as I'm doing this, I realized that I need to really intentionally integrate my business self and my home self. And the business ended up being a huge opportunity for my kids. My kids are growing up now. My oldest is 20. I have a 20, 18, and 16-year-old son. And then my daughter is 10 and a half. And they are amazing individuals. And the fact that they got to be a part of some really difficult discussions early on, and I would consult with them on certain things in the business. That was part of the inspired path for me. Is I didn't want the business to become this burden in their life. And how could I have the business be a vehicle for them to become who God created them to be? So that's just one example of the inspired system, which is about really identifying those values, the thing that you value, and what is that inspired path for you. T is for team. If you're going to do something big and significant in the world, you can't do it on your own. And in
Mm.
fact, you'll become the bottleneck of the whole thing, and it
Mm.
will end up destroying you. And so
Yeah.
you have to understand how to take that vision that you have and that inspired path, and to, in a sense, I don't know if this is the right word or not, but endow it onto your team. And how can the mission of the company also be helping your team to accomplish their personal life mission and goals? And how, as a team, can you be in the same boat, rowing in the same direction? A client who hired me a year ago, he's this amazing world-class surgeon, and his team was barely holding it together. They were not working together at all. And he was really worried that he might have to sell his company and retire early, because he had tried, but he couldn't really figure it out. And there was still so much work he wanted to do in the world. And so we have worked together utilizing the team system to create a united team that is aligned around a mission and values and understands how to implement those things. So that's the team system. And what else am I missing? Oh, the A and the L. A is for align. We kind of started there. If you are living a life that doesn't align with what you want, you're at war with yourself all day long. How can you use the align system to create alignment between what you're thinking and believing, what you're wanting and feeling, and what your actions are doing? When those three things line up, you are unstoppable. Nobody can touch you. And
Mm.
it's not because you are pushing people aside and shoving them down to get what you want, utilizing things like force and compulsion, but you just have this clarity on who you are. You show up in the world as that person. You align with those actions. It's magnetic. And in a way, that's what happened in my company. I mentioned that all of that press and attention came to us. It's because of this align system and what I learned on how to radiate something that's so attractive people can't ignore you. And then the last piece, L, is lead. When you decide you want to live your life's purpose and mission in the world, and that you're going to build a team, you have to understand how to lead. And really well-intending, kind, integrity-filled individuals often get in their own way because they're so kind, because they're so loving, because they're so benevolent. They actually end up being horrible leaders. And we need to understand how to empower people. You don't even have to motivate them if you can just empower them to do what they already want to do. So the lead system is about really understanding how to be a powerful leader. And when you do all of these pieces at the same time, when you understand how to make them a part of just who you are, then what you want and who you are and the things that you feel inspired to accomplish and achieve and the calling that you have in life, it just all works in tandem to support you in accomplishing those things. It's amazing. It's like,
That's so
and
awesome.
and once you experience this, there's no going back. There's no other way to
Yeah.
live life.
Yeah. So how many, like, let me ask you, how many hours a day do you work now?
Oh, that's the beautiful thing. When I exited my company where I was working around the clock, I made a decision that I'm in a season of life where I don't want to work more than 20 hours a week. So right now, I don't work more than 20 hours a week. I make a ridiculous amount of money working only 20 hours a week. And it's beautiful. I don't feel overwhelmed. I don't feel stressed out. The work that I do lights me up. My family will confirm this. I get off coaching calls and I'm bouncing off the walls. And I'm just so filled with excitement and energy for what people are accomplishing and achieving in their life. And it's just so fulfilling.
Mm.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I love that so much. So Jillian and I have both gone through a transition where we got out of our like primary employment / business and kind of separately moved to the Caribbean. Jillian lives in Puerto Rico now. I kind of live on
so
the
do
other
I.
side of the island.
You live in Puerto Rico?
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, we all live in Puerto Rico. How about
Are
that?
you
Yeah, where do you
serious?
live?
I'm
Yeah.
in Palmas del Mar.
Oh,
Oh,
nice.
In
okay.
Humacao.
I'm in Isla Verde and Jillian's in
Oh.
Rincon.
Oh my word.
Yeah.
That's great.
I mean, I'm on the mainland right now, but yeah,
well,
we
we're
live
in Chattanooga right now, actually. Jillian's in an Airbnb on the other side of town, and I'm in my office because I split time between the two. But this is way off topic for our podcast because I think Jillian and our listeners already know that we're in Puerto Rico. But that's great. I love that you're in Puerto Rico.
We've
It's a
been there for
great
3
place to
years.
be.
I love it.
Yeah, we should meet up sometime since we're all in
I
the
would love
same
that.
place. Like, there's really no reason not to.
Yeah, for
But,
sure.
But so we do have to wrap up anyway. So
Yeah.
we're like moving
Yeah.
towards the end of the show, and I really love the vital system. I love that you break it down. I'm a big fan of like simplifying things, right? Like
Me too.
Same.
and
Me
saying
too.
here's something that we can all remember, right?
Yes.
Vision, inspired path, team, align, and lead, right? I think that's what
Yes.
it was.
Yeah.
And if we can, if there was one thing, and I think I already know your answer to this based on your previous answer, but if there's one thing to leave our audience with in their quest to live the best version of their life, which is really what you're talking about, and that's what we always talk about. How do you live the best version of your life for you, whatever that means to that individual? If there was one thing you could leave them with, what would you say?
Because of the format of this show, it's really short. We've kind of shown everybody Katie's highlight reel, and it looks like, oh, wow, that woman has something that I don't have. And that's not true. You have something really special, and what you want does matter. And it starts with a belief. And, when we're kind of in a pit and struggling to find our way out, or maybe even just in a place in life where it's just not exactly as wonderful and amazing. I've had clients come to me say, my life's pretty good. And they're like, I think it could be even better, but I don't want to mess it. And I'm like, no. It can be so amazing and so fulfilling. So the thing that I would say to that individual is, it is possible for you. And I know that maybe right now you can't see it and maybe you struggle to believe it, but I believe it for you. So while you might not believe it for yourself, please know that Katie Richardson, mother of 4, empire builder, coach to high performing entrepreneurs, I believe in you, and lean into me and my belief as you go make moves and take action to go accomplish and achieve the things that you uniquely feel called to do in this world.
I love that so much. So if people want to get a hold of you or follow you, what's the best place for that?
I have a podcast called What's Working Now, and I'm super active on Instagram. It's katie.live.
Katie.live. Cool. All right. And What's Working Now is the podcast. I'm definitely
Yes.
going to have to check that out. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. It was fantastic.
Yeah. Thank you both. This was amazing.
All right, Jillian, you have anything you want to leave our audience with?
I want to remind everybody to live the best version of your last life ever.